All right, if you're somebody that's losing distance, I'm talking as much as 20, 30 yards with a 7-iron that you've magically just seen go disappear, or your contact is struggling and it's very random why that is happening, then one of the biggest causes for that is going to be how this trail hip moves in your golf swing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today and give you some drills that will help you figure out how to move properly, load this trail hip properly. That's going to be a key word as we go through this, loading this trail hip so you can have space to make better contact, but you can also have power that is loaded up and you can then use to put into the golf ball, rotate your body, and make better contact. What's going on, everybody? Scott Hogan coming at you. We're here, we're in the studio, we're in the new lab. It's not super new, but we did do some changes. You can see with some of the hitting surface and how we lay it out. If you'd like to learn more about that, leave that comment down below. I know a lot of you are looking for indoor setups to help improve and how you can get better at your game. I've had one of my best ball striking seasons because I think of a lot of what I've done in here. So if you'd like to hear more about that, leave that comment down below and I will make that video in the future. But today we're going to talk about loading this golf swing up and getting this trail hip onto the proper, path to hitting the golf ball better. So what is the typical thing that I see that people struggle with? Well, the first thing we would see is we're going to see people that typically would sway in their swing, having a sway with this trail hip going away from the golf ball. Two things happen when we do that. One, our tilts get out of whack, where we're sliding back and now my right hip is bumped and it's gone up too much. My left side has gone down and now I'm going to have a hard time turning. I've kind of locked myself out here where I cannot properly turn into my backswing. Now, two, what we're going to see from that when we sway is you're going to actually get your pressure and your weight on the outside of your foot. If I was going to throw a baseball, I would not lean like this or get this right hip really high. I'd actually go the other way and then throw the ball, right? That's how I would load everything up to be able to get into a powerful position, deliver the baseball. The other thing that we'll see that is a major issue when we are hitting a golf ball and the trail hip is a problem is if we sway or if we just go back and we don't get enough depth to our trail hip, what ends up happening is we do not have any room to be able to get the club back to the ball. The club will all of a sudden have to work around my hip to get back to the ball. And if you're seeing that, you probably are seeing some common things that most golfers struggle with, such as an over the top, or they have a problem with hitting the ball in the center of the face because that club is not tracking back the way that we would like to see it. This is a big issue with early extension as well, stuff that we'll see as we go through the swing. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do about what do we want to see the trail hip doing in our golf swing. Well, the first thing that we want to see it do is we want to see that it loads up properly where we're actually getting some energy stored into our hip. We want to see some energy stored into our hip. Now, how does that work? Well, if I was to take my foot here, I got my trail foot in the air, and I just turn my entire leg. Try to feel like I'm turning my entire leg. I feel like I'm turning it in. That would be something of, we're getting close to what we call internal rotation of our hip. You do want to feel like you're rotating up by your hip here, your hip socket. When you do this, not just rotate your foot. Don't just do your foot. Try to get the hip involved here as you do this. But when we take that feeling, as I make a backswing, what I want to feel is I want to feel like I'm rotating that hip and rotating my body into that hip, letting that hip internally rotate. So even though I'm not moving my leg because of the ground, I feel like I'm rotating my hip in that fashion where it's internally rotating. So I'm going to rotate back as we go through. So this is what lets me turn and get into my hip a little bit. Now I've loaded this hip up properly where I'm not outside of my body. I don't see my knee going outside of my foot. I don't see this hip swaying back. I'm pressuring into my trail side, but this hip is rotating and loading. That's a very important concept that we want to do because we need to be able to get the club back. We need to actually transfer onto our trail side. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make when they are a swayer is that they try and just hang out on the lead side because they're so afraid of swaying back because it's been an issue. They're not doing it properly. But we see the most powerful ball strikers. We see the best ball strikers. There's definitely a transfer into the trail side with their swing. The key is they know how to load this hip properly so that they are loading it, they're not swaying and just losing all their angles, losing their ability to get back to the golf ball with power and accuracy for that strike. The second thing that we want to see when we are talking about the trail hip is we want to see some depth into this trail hip. We need to be getting away from the golf ball. One of the most important concepts that we need to do in golf is we need to get back away from the golf ball. You do not get closer to the ball during your swing, or it's very, 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 very rare that a high-level player will do that. There is always an exception to everything, but this one is exceedingly rare that you would see this, okay? And if a player did get closer, we're talking like tenths of an inch that they're getting closer that we would see on, like, let's say 3D. But what we want to see is getting away from the golf ball. Now, how do we do that? Okay, so we talked about loading the hip, but this is where we need to use the ground, and this is where what we saw Matt Fitzpatrick doing at the Ryder Cup. If you were following the Ryder Cup, there was a great drill that Matt Fitzpatrick was doing. He was actually doing it for his lead side, but we can take that and apply it to our trail side and make our backswing better. I think most people, if you're watching this video, you're going to need the trail side to work better than you do the front side, that lead side. Just more going to need that backswing to be better and loaded so you have a better chance. So what happens when we get depth is we are using the ground to do this. We are pushing with our feet, and I'm specifically pushing with my trail foot. Now, what most people hear is, oh yeah, I've heard of this. I have to get pressure in my golf swing. I got to get pressure into this trail heel. Now, what most people will do when they hear that is they just lean back on that heel. They're not actually loading anything. They just lean on their heel. Sometimes I'll see these toes come up in the air, and that's not an athletic position either. We don't want to get to where we're off balance the opposite direction into our heel. We do need to push that way, but we need to, again, the whole purpose is we need to be loading our hip and loading our body for power. So what we need to do is, if I was to take my foot again here, I'm going to hold it up in the air. If I was just to kick in this direction, like I'm kicking a ball this way, or I'm kicking right towards this camera, that is the force that we are pushing on our foot, okay? So it's that. I'm doing this with my foot. That's how I'm pushing. When I say the word push, most people think of it like a skateboard. I'm going to push and I'm going to push. I'm going to push back. And what ends up happening is you're pushing the wrong direction. You're pushing everything this way, and that's why we get early extension. That's why we get some of that stuff. People are pushing the wrong direction as they go to hit the golf ball. I need to be loading up, pushing back away. Now, you can see I still like to have a little bit of knee flex. Again, I've turned and loaded my hip into my right side or my trail side, but I'm doing that through pushing and loading with the ground properly by, again, this feeling of pushing away from the golf ball. When I do that, you'll notice my hip gets back. It gives me some freedom to actually turn. I'm not somebody that turns a ton with the torso, and I need more of that. So moving my hip actually gives me more freedom to do that. But I most importantly have space now to deliver the golf ball. So when we hit the golf ball, the best thing I want to see here is when we're doing this drill, what I like to see people do is we're going to see a path that is definitely in to out. So for me on our flight scope, that would be right, since I'm a right-handed player. If you were a lefty, you would want something to the left. You can always adjust that later, but if we're doing this drill or we're working on this motion, I definitely want to see an in to out path. Now, what is a drill that we can do to start seeing how this kind of all works? Well, I'm going to take you through a progression, and then we'll get to the Fitzpatrick drill that I was talking about. So the first progression is we're just going to drop this right hip back. I like to start with this one. It's a little bit static for me, but I like to start with this one just to get people to hit some shots, and they feel like their back is at the target when they do this, and we're just going to punch some shots out there. When I do that, you're going to see on our data here a couple of things again that I wanted to point out. I want to see a path that's going to the right, and I also want to see that somebody can get the face closed. Now, one thing that I will notice a lot when people do this drill is they will start hitting the ball a little bit on the toe. I'll even have people hit it way on the toe and kind of just dribble it off to the side. That is okay. Do be aware that that could happen. The reason for that is because now you're loading that trail hip and you're getting depth and you're getting the proper motion in your swing. You then need to allow your arms to swing properly and swing out to the golf ball. You're not used to doing that. If that's happening to you, you're not used to doing that. You're not used to getting to the golf ball with your arms. You're used to using your body to get in closer and get to the ball. So it just takes a little bit of, get a feel for it and feeling those arms working out towards the golf ball. So just be aware of that as we do that. So we do this progression, right hip back, and then we work on just getting a few shots in with that feel. Hit that one pretty good, but didn't get our face impact. But you could see there, I actually hit that with a good path. And one other thing I want to point out is, as we look at this, let's go to our distance as you're doing this drill. If you get good at it, I'm hitting 141 in the air, 141 in the air for a shot that, I'm not using any body, because again, I'm giving myself the proper space for my arms to deliver the golf club. Now, how do we take this into a motion? This is where the real magic happens. We do this static drill. I want you to feel what it's like to have this hip back. Feel like you're hitting, you almost feel like you're hitting with your back to the target a little bit more, because you're now used to loading everything, and your body is going to turn a little bit more as you go through. Now, this is where the Fitzpatrick drill comes in. When we set this up, we're going to do this first without a ball. Okay, and I would probably say we're going to do this all the time without a ball. If you want to get crazy and try it, it could get a little crazy. So I'm not going to say you should hit a golf ball with this one. I would not have anybody, I don't think I would even hit one in here. So when we do this, what we're going to do is take a setup, and I'm going to have a normal stance, but what I'm going to do is when I make my backswing, I'm going to push back with my trail foot and just get loading up going back, okay? Getting a feel for how to push into my foot properly, getting that feeling. Again, it's this motion, not this motion, like I'm a horse or, again, a skateboarder. I'm pushing and loading everything back as we go. So the first step to this drill, and this is where we saw the Fitzpatrick part. Fitzpatrick was going the other way, hitting shots doing that. He's trying to get his hip on the other side to work. Again, most of us are going to need this trail hip first to get this working properly before we ever need to worry about the lead side. So what we're going to do is push, step back. We're going to push, step back. You're going to land. I like for people to feel like they're going to land pretty heavy on this trail foot, because again, I don't want to hang on my lead side, but I'm going to push and land. I feel like I've landed on this trail foot. That's a good way for us to feel what it's like to get this loading of the trail hip and getting this proper pushback. Now, the other part that I like to do, just so we get a feel for our club path and what's going on, I like to have you actually make a swing here. So you're going to go back and swing. Okay? We're going to push back, swing. Okay? That is going to give you a feeling of what it's like to load and then swing before we ever see this trail hip fire and go out towards the golf ball. Keeping this hip back is the goal. Again, we're trying to create space from the golf ball so we can deliver the club how we want to. this is where I would say do not hit a golf ball because you're pretty far back when you do this. So it's going to be very difficult to make contact. Then what we'll do is take this into a golf shot. We're going to take this into a golf shot and we're going to try and see if we can get the ball to draw, have some draw shape. Again, for a right-handed player, I want a pretty decent path out to the right, but I do want to see us keep in mind what our contact is going to be as we do this. So when I go to do this, I'm going to kind of put everything together. So again, I had the feeling of this is how I'm swinging. Now I'm going to load and swing. And now I'm going to make the swing where I feel the load and swing, but I'm not going to step back with that foot. Pretty good there. 5.7 to the right. Little shut face for me on that one. That's something I definitely struggle with. Contact decent, maybe a touch low, but not too bad as we do it. Let's go ahead and let's do it again. Bring it up, push, and go. That one's a little better. A little better there, getting that path out, hitting that draw. Little, again, maybe just a bottom groove or two, whatever. That's not bad. I would rather have that than hitting a chunk, but we're getting that ball and that club face centered up as we do this. So this is the foundations to doing whatever you really want to do with this golf club. If you're somebody that wants to fade it, you can add those pieces in later. As we always say in instruction, you go from being a slicer in this game to becoming somebody that hooks the ball to then somebody that probably fades it if you get really, really good. That's kind of the progression that we're going to go. But the big thing is understanding how we load that trail hip. So for you swayers, for you early extenders, these drills are going to help you and they're going to make it a lot easier for you to understand how we can get through the golf ball because we are loading properly as we go back. So if you have any questions about it, please leave that comment down below. I'd love to answer this one. This one's going to be a big one that we see from a lot of people. If you have questions about any other issues that this can fix, I could see this fixing a lot of issues. I'd love to give you an opinion on that. So again, leave that comment. And as always, click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. We will see you in a future video. Thanks everybody for watching. Peace.